I've had my peaks and valleys with running over the last several years. I've had the training blocks where I absolutely crush it, and then I have the times where I bonk, I blow up. I have to stop training because of injuries or something like that. And so I want to talk about three major things that if you are currently in those doing those things, then it will hurt you in your ability to gain speed, in my opinion. Or really what a lot of this is it might give you a little bit of a boost and benefit, but at some point you'll hit a plateau. And if you're cool with that, there's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone's trying to run a 2 hour marathon, right? But if you're saying, I want to get faster, I think you should pay attention to these three things I'm going to talk about. So, one, if you are not running fast, you won't get fast. And I know that's like a silly, obvious thing, but it actually really surprises me when people talk about how they won't get faster, and I ask them what they're doing, and they're pretty much running the same pace every run. And so there will be a little bit of you getting more fit and be able to run those paces, and they feel easier, so you can go fast. But if you really want to get fast, what you have to do is you have to look at it as like a spectrum of like the intensity of your run. So I'm not going to use pace, but how hard you're going, or like your heart rate maybe. If let's say 8:30 is kind of the middle ground, right? It's kind of hard, it's kind of easy. Then you have like these 10, 11-minute miles, and then you have like 6-minute miles, right? If you look at it like that, what I think a lot of people do wrong when it comes to training is when they do speed work, the whole run is speed. Meaning they typically run 9-minute miles, but then when they go for a fast run, the whole like 6 mile run is 8 minutes long. And you will get faster as you practice running harder. But what I think is more effective, personally, in my opinion, when it comes to gaining speed, is you go all the way to this side of the scale for the most part. Meaning, it doesn't mean like every single run, like tempo workout you do is tempo. But if 8 is where you feel comfortable, if you want to get really good at running fast, what you should do is 6:30s in an interval style of training. So let me explain this. So if you're going to do speed work, I think it's always helpful to do a little bit of a warm up and then a cool down. So let's say you warm up for 2 miles, you're going to cool down for 2 miles. But if you have like 4 miles in the middle, what I think is better is that you're pushing that edge. Again, it's not a sprint, like you need to be able to endure it. But let's say you would typically run a 6 mile run at 8-minute mile pace. Instead of doing that whole 6 miles at 8-minute miles, what I would do is have that warm up, and then you could do something like this where you run for 2 miles at a 7-minute, 6:30-minute pace, or you do some sort of interval. Meaning, for half a mile you do 6:30-minute pace, you take a half-mile recovery, and then you do it again. So you do 2 repeats of that. The point I'm trying to get is you will get faster if you run your whole run faster, but you're not able to go as fast for getting to that edge, like getting to that, like pushing the limits if you're running the whole thing tempo. So hopefully this makes sense, because I just want you to understand that you don't have to run that whole entire run at a faster pace. In fact, if you do a little bit easier for the warm up, then you have your tempo section, and then you have your cool down, you're going to be able to get like closer to that edge than if you're like, I'm doing the whole 6 miles as fast as I can. There's nothing necessarily wrong about that, but if you're trying to make the most like gains in speed work, intervals or doing a mile repeat or 400s, like those type of things are going to help you push the edge. And I know there's different exercises out there. To simplify it, what you could do is warm up for 2 miles, run 2 miles at a faster pace, cool down. Or you do half-mile repeats or something like that, because in that recovery phase your heart rate comes down and then you can go hard again, versus you just ride this line when 3 miles your heart rate peaks and you just can't really push beyond that because you're running the whole thing fast. So I've done both. I'm just talking about if you want to be more efficient or productive in your gains, you have to ride that edge more, well, like closer and more often. And so you have to have an interval style type of training, or even if it's like 2 mile warm up, 2 mile at speed work, 2 mile cool down. So hopefully that makes sense. But here's the second thing we need to talk about is if you don't take your easy run seriously, you will get in the way of your gains. And there's a couple factors. One, you're more likely to get injured, and two, you're not recovering enough from the other runs. So you're just constantly beating yourself up, which will, as I said, like lead to injuries. So when it comes to training, I simplify it. I look at easy runs and tempo runs. That's it. Sometimes there's something in like zone 3 maybe, but that's when I'm running with a friend and I don't really care about the training. But what I've gone to, and a good place I've gone to when it comes to running, is my easy runs are just as valuable, if not more important, than my speed sessions. So I'm incredibly proud of them. Because here's what's happening. If you're running in zone 1, zone 2, over enough time, you will be able to run faster at the same heart rate. So the question I ask people is, what sounds more efficient and easier on the body? Running 10-minute miles at 160 beats per minute, or heart rate, or running 10-minute miles at 140 beats per minute. Your body's working less hard when it's not pumping. Like, that's an additional 20 beats per minute that your body doesn't have to do. And so when you take your easy run seriously, and I would go and look up heart rate zone running or zone 2 running to learn more about it. I've made videos, there's other really good videos out there. When you take it seriously, you start to build this fitness that you can stack more intensity on top of it. So this is what I'm getting at with these first 2 points. Is the way this was explained to me by my uncle is you have your base. So think of it like a sand pile, like when you're on the beach and you're piling sand on top of and just trying to go as high as you can. Once you hit a certain point and you dump sand on it, there's not a wide enough base, so it just slips down to the base. And so here's a mistake people make with running is they don't work on these easy runs or this base work, so they might get fast for a while. Like, I'm not saying you won't get faster, but at some point you hit a plateau or a peak because the base isn't wide enough. So the base is your easy running, and the more you do that, the wider the base you have. And so the wider the base you have, the more intensity you can stack on top of it, meaning your body can recover and push the edge again. And also you're just more like you're avoiding injury, because if I ran 50 miles in that week and all of them were super fast, given enough time, I'm probably going to run into some sort of injury or pain or not being able to keep up. Like, you might get burnt out, right? And so you got to take your easy runs seriously. And the point I'm really trying to hit is you got to be proud of those easy runs, because those are keeping you healthy. That's helping you stay more efficient. You can run more mileage in a week if that's a goal for you, if most of those are easy. So I look for like an 80-20 split. And I think you could track that by like how much you run in a week. So if it's 10 hours, 8 of those hours should be easy, 2 of those hours are some sort of speed work mixed in with your training, or volume too, right? So you run at 100 miles, it's just easier for math. I know I'm not doing that right now, and a lot of my subscribers aren't doing that, but the point being, if I was running 100 miles, 80 miles would be easy, 20 miles would be at some sort of speed work or higher intensity. But I've seen a lot of pros track it more by time opposed to the volume, which makes sense to me. So the first 2 points is you got to ride that edge and get to the peak of the fitness. And again, it's not a sprint, but where you can maintain something. And then, I mean, there's nothing wrong with sprints. It's just a lot of us are like endurance athletes, so we're not running a 100-meter. It's more, I want to run a faster 5K. And so you got to be able to ride the edge more, and you do that by intervals or not running as much at that speed, but you push the edge a little bit further, and you work on your base, and you keep it easy, so then you reduce your risk of injury as you're training and building into a training plan. Now the third thing, if you are not stretching, maybe you've heard this, if you're not stretching, I think you're unlikely to get faster. And I have a point with this. I think stretching is so fundamentally important for avoiding injury. So it doesn't mean you just do those 2 things I talked about and don't stretch. You will get faster, but at some point I do believe you may run into an injury. And so I think stretching is one of those things that people don't think about that helps you get faster, but the way it helps you get faster is you're reducing your risk of injury. It's so painful when you're in a training block and then you get injured and then you have to take time off. It just sucks. And one way I've been able to avoid that happening to me is by stretching and taking stretching more seriously. So ultimately, I'm here just to give my perspective on things, and you can take it or leave it. And there are some people I've talked to that says stretching actually hurts them. Personally, I think they're just not being consistent enough with it and giving it enough time, or they're stretching wrong, which is a really important point. Like, I'm a certified yoga teacher. I've learned what's like a right way to stretch and what's a wrong way, So I think, anyways, it's just so valuable. And if you get runner's knee, you get shin splints, you get back pain, a lot of that stuff can be mitigated and reduced by stretching. And so here's a simple way to implement stretching that I think isn't too overwhelming, and at least you get it in, is after every single run you plan for 7 to 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes of stretching. So I would much rather an athlete reduce their runs by a mile or half a mile and put stretching into that than impressing me with how crazy their volume is. Like, it's impressive when people can do that, and there's nothing wrong with increasing volume. My point is if you're going to use the excuse I don't have enough time, or I can't, or I already do too much, if you just reduce, like you run 4 days a week and you reduce each of those runs by half a mile, now you have another 5 something minutes, right, to be able to implement stretching. I really like doing this because I stretch after every run. I really like doing this also because I'm already warm, and so I can get right into stretching. One thing we learned in my yoga certification is when you're doing a yoga class, like an hour long or whatever it is, you have to slowly warm up the body because a lot of people are coming in cold, and that can be a way to hurt you. So if you're just like cold and then you're like just stretching for your toes, or you're like twisting your arm and shoulder in weird directions, yeah, I could see why that would hurt. And so when you're running and then you jump straight into stretching right after, one, you're already warm, so you can get deeper into the stretch. And two, I found that this has helped me be less tight throughout the day. Like the days I don't stretch after a run, I feel just a little bit more locked up or tight than if I, stretch immediately after. So simple stretches, a quad stretch, calf stretch, a hamstring stretch, I think that's plenty. And you can do an hour-long stretching session or do some yoga throughout the week. I think that's amazing. It's just a lot of people say they don't have enough time, right? I mean, that's an excuse I've used, and then I just realized, well, why don't I do it just right after my run? If I have an hour to work out, I run for 50 minutes and stretch for 10 minutes, right? So hopefully you get something out of this. Ultimately, it doesn't mean you won't ever get faster if you don't do easy runs. A big part of running is staying away and avoiding the injuries, right? That's what interrupts speed work and training. Like when I've gotten injured training for a marathon, of course I can't get faster because I have to take time off, I lose some fitness, and then you have to repeat it. So hopefully you got something out of this video. That's what my channel is about, just running content. I'm trying to help people learn from my mistakes, and running quite literally saved my life. And so if I can say something that helps you enjoy it more and be more happy with your running, that's enough for me. So consider subscribing, but if not, I still hope you got something out of the video, and I hope I get to see you in another video sometime soon. Peace.